Fear the Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 6, Red Dirt. Now this episode I think was really good for the fact that it seems to be leading to, well, obviously next week is the mid-season finale, but even without knowing that, just watching this episode, I was like, okay, this is clearly leading to some really good event for this season. I didn't expect it to be the mid-season finale, which is going to be, fortunately, 2 hours, but it does suck that it's so close. I forgot they still even did mid-season finales for, for this show, because it's like, well, it's a summer show. You don't really think of summer shows getting mid-season finales, so I forgot we had that, which means it probably won't be back until, like, I would assume close to, either late August, maybe, early September, because they tend to do it going right into, or, maybe like a couple of weeks time between Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead coming back. But I'm excited for the mid-season finale, and I think this episode definitely showed off some pretty good content as far as, getting the characters together, rallying, at least by the end, rallying everyone that stayed within the ranch for this episode and saying, like, this is what will happen if we go out, because we have, 2 founders are left alive. We, of course, have our main guy who, it's hard to say how things are going to play out for this guy. Like, I don't know if he's ultimately going to end up on the wrong side of things as, like, a hero, or, wrong side of things as a villain, or if he'll be a hero in the end. But ultimately, he has people leaving his camp, and we have, this other founder who decides once everyone, Madison and Troy and everyone else comes back, it's like, okay, well, this is insane. Like, these people killed this out, they took out this entire outpost. They took their shoes and made them, like, walk back for a full day. So this is nuts. And then they also have, of course, these random campfires that are just, basically done up around the entire ranch. Like, hey, we're watching you. We set these up all around you guys and you had no idea. And they even mention it, whereas, like, the fire that was at their front gate was, like, a couple of meters out, like, 10, 15 meters out. And it's like, what was that scout doing? So, they can literally surround them, and they're kind of showing these different signs, like, hey, this is what we can do. We have, these abilities to get close to you. And so we have one guy who's like, the be-all, end-all of this ranch. He's like, if they were going to kill us, they do it. But clearly they're doing these little parlor tricks because they don't have the numbers and they don't have the people. So it's not going to work. So everyone, his thing is kind of almost like just no biggie, just whatever. And he's not really, I felt like he didn't do enough to explain to people, like, this is why this isn't that big of a deal. He would kind of do his inner circle thing where it's like, oh, it's his sons or it's Madison. Where it's like, oh, they're doing this because they don't have the numbers. But he never took the time to, like, explain why he was so confident to anybody else. It was kind of just the same thing, like, they would have done it already. But it's like, you don't really know that. But I felt like he, wasn't explaining the way he, we see him explain it, I feel, in a pretty decent way. Like, when they talk about the fires, like, they do this because they don't have the numbers. But I felt like he never really took the chance to say that to everyone else. It was kind of just like, don't worry about it, everything's fine. And that's certainly not the case, from the perspective of, like, oh, my son just came back with this group of people. They tell us this other outpost was completely wiped out, and then they're walking back, with bloody feet and everything, all this crazy stuff. So he decides, as the last of the 2 founders alive, to get his family together, and they take off. And of course, it takes like a day and a half or so, and they're, Nick and him are at the house, and it's like, oh, what is this doing here? And of course, it's like the one animal, or I guess technically they had a horse, so it was like one of the 2 animals that they had is just randomly back at the ranch, and it's like, well, they're dead. Like, he knew. Like, as soon as he saw that, he was like, this is theirs, and that means they're dead, because they wouldn't let it go, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I know that they are dead. So, of course, they send, they do a small little search party. They find all these people. They find this whole family completely wiped out. They were all shot up. So, it's like the idea that odds are it's the other people that are, the people that are trying to get them to leave the ranch. But at the same time, there's also, like, this little notion, like, maybe this was Troy because of how mad he was when they left. And I thought that was interesting. It's like, I feel like they almost teeter on the edge of saying, like, it could actually be him, it might not be him, but he says that it wasn't him, Troy does, and that seems to ultimately be how it plays out, like, it really wasn't him. We'll see if that's a lie. It's kind of like all put out there, like, oh, it's definitely not Troy, it's gotta be these people. But, one side of that is Troy saying it's not him, and then the other side of that is Madison saying it's these other people solely to rally, everyone within the ranch. So you got a guy you can't trust, Madison, who's clearly lying, and then we really don't know the truth 100% just yet. So it's like, it could easily still come out that ultimately it was Troy. I I feel like they definitely did an interesting tease with Jake, whereas like I don't know, I feel like it could have been him too with the whole like the scene with him and Alicia where it's like, oh, I gotta go this way and I gotta I gotta take like this other route so my dad won't stop me and this and that. And I really can't remember exactly what that scene was about, but I'm like, I feel like that would be an interesting twist if it turned out like whatever he was talking about, he just so happened to not be doing any of that and he goes to heal this family. And I just thought it would be interesting if that's how that ends up turning out. I don't think that'll be the case because it really doesn't seem like his character. That definitely seems like something Troy would do, and that he didn't do it, but ultimately we don't know that for sure. But I don't know. I mean, Jake was the one that was supposed to have left, and it's like, I don't know, that would be very interesting if he was responsible for that, and, you know, what the reason might be and why he would feel the need to actually even, bother doing that. But it was a very interesting moment. You know, it definitely rallies everyone who is still within the ranch, like, okay, yeah, we need to band together as a team, because if we leave, like Madison said, if we leave one family at a time, this is pretty much how it'll happen. You know, one family at a time goes out, they get killed, and then, once enough families get killed on the outside and there aren't even enough families to defend the ranch itself, that's when everyone else gets killed off. So it's like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And then, like I said, there's still a lot of weird elements about the family dying because, of course, it's like, why not take, you have an animal that you can use for, any sort of different means for food, for its skin, all that stuff, a week's worth of supplies, all this other stuff. There's so many different elements where it's like, I don't feel like this is just a sign. Like, even if it was just a sign to be like, hey, this is what we can do when you guys leave, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, if they really want the ranch, they'll still take that food. They don't know how long it's going to take. If you're attacking some, pseudo-fortified ranch, you'll still take what you can get. Like, you kill this family off, you still take those supplies because it's like, alright, well, we can totally do that. We can take this animal if we want to, or just get rid of it. But instead, this family, just randomly gets killed off. All the supplies are left. The animal is just left to, walk down the road and get back to the ranch. So it's like, I don't know. Like, that's why I said it feels like there's still something to it, where it's like there's just something that happened there as far as the supplies. And, in the apocalypse, you take every bit that you can get. And that didn't happen after they wipe out this family. And it's just like something's not right there. So it's got to be somebody, and I don't think it's actually the people going against them. Otherwise, they're actually super, super dumb. They have this really awesome plan to get families to leave one by one, and yet when they kill them, they just leave all the supplies because it's like it doesn't matter. Like, they just have infinite supplies or something. So it does kind of make me lean towards, honestly, I feel like Jake would just like, that would just be an interesting twist. I don't think it would make exact sense, but, it could work, it could happen. People go crazy. But I definitely like this episode for what it did with the characters and everyone kind of banding together in these different ways. And then, of course, getting to the end of the episode where the torches and the idea that these people could come in and attack them ultimately does end up coming to fruition, just on a much smaller scale with that single family that actually, left everyone else behind. So we now have everyone rallied together. We're going into the 2-hour mid-season finale, which, like I said, I'm very excited for. This one really focused on the ranch, so we actually don't even get to see anything with Strand or Salazar or anybody else. So I am excited for what we're going to get there, see, how in the world Strand is going to end up surviving, what's going to happen with Salazar. Mid-season finale, I have to assume, we got 2 hours. Ophelia has to show up during the mid-season finale, because otherwise it's just like, what, like, clearly they just do not care about this character. But I have to assume, with us going to the mid-season finale, I would hope that she shows up before the end of the second episode. Like, I hope that they don't use her as like the cliffhanger, because I mean, I guess it wouldn't matter in the end, but it would still just be like, wow, they literally saved it to only have her lead into, the second half of this season. So I hope she actually does get some time out, because I really want some answers. I would love to know what in the world is going on with her, where she's been, what she's been doing, how she's surviving. And they just don't, we haven't had anything. We haven't had anything from her for a giant chunk of time from the last season until like she would just have a couple of scenes here and there, and then the ending where she meets this random person. And we've had literally nothing this season, and we're going into the 2-hour mid-season finale. So I assume we have to see Ophelia in one of these next 2 episodes. I would assume, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at least, that they would use Ophelia as the cliffhanger going into the second half of the season, and we still get no answers. That would personally make me mad, because it's like, we've been waiting all this time, and they clearly just kind of wrote her off as a character, and you know, like, obviously I know they're focusing a lot on the ranch and, you know, a little bit on Salazar and Strand and what they're doing now, but it's like, she's been on her own for a super long time, and clearly, like, nothing from her journey is important. Like, when Nick did that, it was like half the season was him by himself and meeting, like, Luciana and meeting other new characters and what he was dealing with, and pretty much all those characters are either dead or gone in the case of Luciana, where she left. And that was the whole focus on him because he's you know, an important character. But she was there from the very beginning as well, and it's just like, man, none of that junk seems to make any difference whatsoever. She's like just so irrelevant. So I would love to see them actually start to, you know, reutilize that character, I guess, and hopefully we see more of her than just she's like the last scene for the mid-season finale going into the second half. Because it'll be like, man, we wanted answers since we last saw her, which was forever ago, because even with where we are now, you know, like I said, we haven't seen her. We've heard her name a bunch, but we still have not seen her. So I hope that she does show up. I do really want to know what's going to happen with Strand. I think that's my biggest mystery, is like, how is he going to survive? Like, I'm sure he'll be fine, but I really want to know if he ends up meeting the characters that are in the hotel, because they were important for a little bit until they kicked everybody else out. And, you know, he was still there for a little bit, and of course he left, and then he went back. So it's like, is he going to run into, you know, the people that they were with, and then they go to the dam, maybe? So I'm just very curious who's left alive, and exactly what happened for sure, because they always had, like, this, you know, secluded gate. I wouldn't be too shocked if the people that were at, like, the market or anything, you know, a lot of those people died, but there's always a way to be like, you know, somebody lived, or some random thing like that. I kind of doubt that'll be the case, but, you know, there's always a way to pull a new villain out of somewhere where it's like, oh, there are a bunch of people, you thought everybody died, but it's like, no, there's actually one person left. So I doubt that that'll end up being the case, but something happened where the gates just, you know, it failed and everything is just falling into chaos. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Hope we see Ophelia. Of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about this episode, though, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, or least favorite parts. And of course, we're going into the mid-season finale, so I definitely want to know what you guys want to see and what your theories are for what we will see. I assume we're going to get the ranch versus, you know, the outsiders. I was just calling that. And I don't know how that's going to play out. Like, it's really hard to say, especially as going into the mid-season finale. I think this will be like their first battle, but I don't think it'll, you know, really end things. I don't think it'll be like last season where, like, the mid-season finale was just like, okay, they did this whole journey, and then the second half of the season is like completely different from that because people split up and everything. I don't think it'll be that drastic this time where they, like, lose the big location and then, you know, move on to the next big location. So I think they'll still keep the ranch by the end of the mid-season finale. I think it'll be more about, here's what's happening with our, like, 3 main characters, or 4 now, because Luciana took off as well. So I think, you know, a big change for the second half of the season will really be, what are the other 4 characters doing on the outside of this ranch, and how are they, you know, somehow migrating closer and closer to the ranch, eventually getting all our characters back together. So that's my theory for how the second half is going to go. I don't think this first big battle is going to cause them to lose the ranch. Maybe the season finale, they'll lose the ranch and then, you know, have to move on to the next location. But I don't think they'll lose it in the mid-season finale. And I'm hoping, like I said, I really hope we get Ophelia, but I can't really say I think we will. I just really hope that we do, and not as, like, the last minute cliffhanger, like, oh, remember how you had all those questions last year? Well, here you go. And then, you know, we have to wait until, like, September to get, you know, finally get those actual answers. So I'm hoping that's not how it plays out, but my theory is that they won't end up losing the ranch. This will just be like their first battle. Maybe some people will, of course, you know, end up dying, but, you know, they kind of killed off some of the important, like, they killed off the young girl who was, I think, the most important out of that family, really. And so they don't have a lot of ranch-based characters that are important, and I don't think they'll be killing off the few main characters we have left at the ranch anyway. So it's hard to say. I think some people will die, but I don't think they'll actually matter for the mid-season finale. Maybe they'll kill off the leader, whose name I swear I can never remember. I remember Troy and Jake finally, but I still can't remember their dad's name. So maybe he'll die, but I don't think it'll be as drastic as it could be since we're going, you know, still going into the second half of the season. But that's my theory. Like I said, we'd love to know yours. And of course, just want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.